What's going on, Keith? Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in. It's Monday. I know it's Monday Night Football. Everyone's probably just watching the Rams and the 49ers game right now. What's going on, nerds? Damn, Tesla really dropped $10 after hours? Yikes. Robot voice? Appreciate that, Izzy. Robot. Should be cleared now. Let me just make sure one more time. Keith, what happened to BGFV? Static. Yeah, Tesla's just getting annihilated. Pretty much all cause of Elon Musk. Alright, I should be good now. Perfect. Appreciate that, Izzy. Welcome in, everyone. I know it's Monday Night Football. There's a lot of people out there watching football, so I understand it's a pretty good game tonight with the 49ers and the Rams. I mean, Matthew Stafford, though, is just stinking up the joint. I don't know what's going on. But getting into, I saw someone mention BGFV, and this is potentially what happens with squeezes, right? Is that there's always a bad ending to it at some point in time. I mean, even though you want to take the price target higher and higher, you have to be aware of what the downside potential is, and that's basically what ended up happening. Is that the shorts pretty much won this battle, and that's usually what happens with short squeezes at some point in time. It's gonna become shy of whatever target is that you have or what you predict, and you have to be prepared for that. So the best thing you do is take profits along the way, and if you end up diamond handing, it is what it is at this point. So it's fading out. It may end up continuing to fade just a bit more and consolidate before we get that kind of reversal that we're expecting. I'll take a peek at it after I go through pretty much the tickers that I need to, and I'll take a look at BGFV, see pretty much where our near-term support is, if that's the case. But real quick, let's just run through some of the tickers on the market, what we're looking at today. When I actually pretty much got onto live this morning, I was pretty much eyeing the big names that were out there. Our big runner names is pretty much looking at Amazon, looking at Google, looking at Tesla, and also Shopify, of course. So Shopify was the one that's pretty much the one with the momentum right now. We saw early little push out of Shopify, market regressed, particularly NASDAQ, and then it was able to bounce back, but it wasn't able to get any further momentum out of its morning high. So that's what ended up with Shopify. So after I saw that weakness with Shopify after the second run, that was pretty much on the back burner. Watching Google, that was pretty much just a flat consolidation type of day for Google. I didn't really see any directional move here today. Then we also look at Amazon. That was the runner that I was expecting following the move from Shopify on Friday. I was expecting that kind of similar, somewhat similar type of price action today, in which it would lead the market. We didn't get that. We topped out around 95, 93, which I'll get to that chart in just a sec. So we ended up topping out at Amazon. So that ended up giving me a sign of indication where, okay, we already saw Tesla gap down pre-market. Google was flat. Shopify didn't have any room to run beyond its morning highs. And then Amazon just gave it all back. So at that point, I'm like, all right, this seems like a very nice consolidation type of day, choppy day. You don't really have a big runner in the morning. And that's why I kind of faded most of the day here. There wasn't much action that I really wanted to take part in. You could have got into Boeing and I think Zoom. I think those are two of the names that pretty much ascended most of the day. So those are two names that you could have gotten into. But other than that, a little bit choppy, a lot of premium eating today. If you went out of the money, yeah, you pretty much got chopped up on a lot of different names. So days like today, especially, you don't want to get aggressive, and some of us we get anxiety, especially, and we want to catch that big move. We want to try and go out of the money. And today, if you did go out of the money, it's a high possibility that you got slaughtered by doing that. All right. So that's pretty much. It's a tiny bit of robot. Good right about now, guys. Appreciate it. But again, that's why I said I was looking at our leading indicators, and I didn't have any big runners this morning. Amazon, Tesla, Google, and Shopify, they all pretty much failed this morning to have any kind of acceleration, any kind of continuation this morning. So that was my indication where today just felt like it was going to be a sideways type of day. And that's basically what we got. Looking at NASDAQ early, I didn't see any kind of leading direction. We got a little bit of a drawback, but then we pretty much just closed the day flat. So getting into S&P here real quick, we're still within my ascending broadening wedge. Nothing's really changed in terms of a directional move. We're just practically going sideways at this point. And so two key levels I'm looking at for the downside is 46.67. That's one key level to the downside. And then the next one is 46.44 to the downside. And we're practically still within about 1% of all-time highs. So, I mean, if we end up getting a next leg higher, especially if retail numbers do come out better than expected, in which that could be a leading indicator of, taking the next leg higher in overall market, then of course, then we're gonna end up possibly getting back to that 47.11 area on S&P futures, and that could be a nice little push here. Do I expect to go beyond 47.11? It is entirely possible that we get some kind of double top formation at that point. So I would caution about that, but I'm more so worried about the downside, and that's why I do have those key levels there: 46.67 and then 46.44. Below that 46.44, we're basically going to break the support on my broadening wedge, and that's when it's going to get a little more ugly. And then we're potentially opening up range down to about 46.16, in which we're going to get down to 46.16 and then retest the support as resistance. Okay. So those are the two key levels that I just have on my back of my mind right now. And then knowing that we're within 1% of all-time highs still, then I'm not worried more so about the upside here. If we do get good retail numbers, I mean, hey, I would love to see us start to boom, have some tech actually start to run, because today did feel like a very much of a consolidation day for most of tech. All right. So that's S&P. Moving over to NASDAQ Futures. Let me just expand that just a bit here. I still have pretty much my descending channel that I had. We ended up getting that breakout. And I pretty much just did a supply demand zone in which I want to see us either break out of the supply zone or we end up going into the demand zone and then buyers step in which that was the case particularly today. We got into that demand zone that I had and we ended up seeing buyers pretty much step in. And so key levels that I'm watching above 16,223 to break into the supply zone. And then above that, we're looking at 16,302 to break out of that supply zone, in which we actually end up completing this wick that we have. All right. And that was from this morning. Okay. And below that, then I have 16,114. That's going to end up putting us right into the supply zone, the demand zone. And below that is 1603, in which we're going to possibly end up breaking down on NASDAQ. So that's what I'm looking at as far as NASDAQ. I mean, just key levels that I'm outlining, and I pretty much set alerts. I had an alert set for this morning to see if we got a directional move after I stepped away, but there was pretty much a no-go. There was basically no directional move. We ended up just going back flat. So I'll keep an eye on those levels. Getting into the tickers that I pretty much wanted to watch, and I don't know why CFLT is on there. But watching Tesla, of course, everyone has eyes on Tesla. And with Elon pretty much selling shares right now, I pretty much expect us to be a little bit range bound. And the fact that we're going to be teetering between up to about 1022, I would expect, as high as that, and then going down to about mid 900s. Small caps today, that's also another thing. IWM has been breaking out, so definitely eyes on Tatum there. That was definitely another thing as well. Small caps, which I don't necessarily pay attention to too much, but that was also another thing. IWM was also breaking out, so you are correct, Tatum. But just getting back to Tesla here, I want to see us end up breaking this downtrend, particularly as you saw, we pretty much gapped down after hours. But I want to end up seeing us get right into this zone right here over that 1022 mark. If we can break over that 2022, that 1022, then we could potentially see upside. And then bulls want to take control over 1047. Below that, then we're pretty much just looking at range bound down to the lows here of 978, in which that opens up down to testing the gap fill if this continues to bleed out. All right. And you're pretty much opening the gap fill here, testing around 944. Okay. So that's what I'm looking at. 1022, that's the target I want to see us get above. Bulls take control over 1047, and you're going to see the gates start flooding with 1200 calls. But if we can't get over that 1022 and we stay below 1000, then it's going to open up range to this recent low here of 978 and then potentially the 944 to test gap fill. All right. So that's basically the key levels that I'm watching for Tesla right now. Going into Shopify, I'm pretty much watching this one in terms of, you see this massive wick right here, and you see a breakout from the ascending channel that we had. What I'm leaning more towards is that we end up retesting this breakout here. That's more so. I did see calls going out to the 700 mark, the 1700 mark, even as far as 1750, which was below ask. So that's, I mean, it's not necessarily something important because it is below ask. Pretty much just small buyers stepping in there, trying to get the FOMO in there. But I would expect us to end up retesting possibly at least to this level of right around 1637, in which that'll be a decent 20 something point drop. Otherwise, if we end up getting back over this level of 1674, then that opens up a range back to the over the $1,700 mark, and then 1750 calls will start flooding the gates. All right. So that's what I'll watch for Shopify. Of course, this one has momentum. So if you're going after a large cap name, especially if market's choppy again tomorrow, this is one just to keep an eye on. And especially if you want to keep an eye on over 1674. And this one could possibly run even if the market is choppy again yet tomorrow. Because it does seem like this week in particular is maybe a little bit more of a sideways type of action rather than just a directional move up or down. All right. So that's the one to keep on a watch. My Amazon chart, this is one that I was pretty much watching very heavily. I actually had calls on this one over the weekend, and I ended up taking profits on it. But I'm pretty much watching it. I'm going to give you an illustration of what we actually had prior on Amazon, and then what you see currently right now. So if I slide over just a bit, and this was back from pretty much covering September of last year up until April of this year. If you see the formation that we ended up having, you got this little, I want to say a banana formation. You ended up getting the drop off, a little bit of a head and shoulders, the spike into a falling wedge, which will basically say is a bull flag, and it ended up reaching that prior high. Okay, so if you get a visual image of this pattern right now, it's pretty much exactly what we're looking at right now on Amazon. You got that little banana formation, you got the drop off, you have the inverted head and shoulders, and this is particularly your bull flag right now. So it's just a matter of time. I think that this is going to end up popping. It could go along with retail earnings, in which if retail earnings are good, Amazon may end up pushing with them. So this is one that I pretty much have this on the top of my watch list right now, and I want to see us get over that $3,600 mark. So if we end up getting over that 3,600 mark, then this is pretty much going to be top of my watch here, like I said. But if we can't end up getting over that 35.93 high that we had this morning, then I'm going to leave it as be. All right. I'm not going to really mess with it because we can continue to go sideways. And then, of course, you don't want to get eaten by premium. So Amazon, again, top of the watch list here with Shopify tomorrow, because those are two potential strong runners. One with momentum and one pretty much technical aspect. This is just textbook right now for Amazon right now. All right. Another one, I do have it on watch, particularly because of the gap fill. We did see the action that Lucid had after hours with their earnings. This was a beautiful little move that they ended up having. And I didn't actually see what they actually closed at after hours. Let me peep real quick. Lucid, what they close at? Oh, they only went up 38 cents. I saw them actually up about $3. We'll see what they do tomorrow. I mean, we've seen a lot of earnings, good earnings, flat, and then by the next morning they end up being runners. But I was particularly more interested about the gap fill that they have here. So we can open up a range up to 50.32. And then over that 50.32, I was watching around the $55 mark. So particularly, I'm more focused on the gap fill here. So I want to see us if we can end up potentially running tomorrow. I can see us running to that $50 mark. And then on top of that, I would actually expect if we do particularly get a nice little gap up in the morning, possibly some upgrades. I won't be surprised if we see this on rapid. We get some rapid calls on that. Lost gains, yeah, it pretty much gave back all $3 of gain. I thought it was actually up. I saw it up $3, and then it pretty much just wiped it out by after hours close. But I didn't look back at it. But we've seen a lot of earnings just flat, and the next morning, possibly by upgrades or whatever the case may be, maybe institutions loading, we can see a potential run tomorrow, and I won't be surprised if we get a rapid call on it. So I'll keep it on the watch list. Another one, just pretty much more on the financial side, is American Express. I do have my eyes on this one. I just like the setup here in particular, especially trying to find setups right now in the choppy market. This may be one of those in particular. Is another pretty much ascending broadening wedge that you're looking at. You had a little wedge formation here, and then you're pretty much getting the breakout towards the recent high. So I'm going to be targeting this one. I want to see it get up to that 187 mark and then test the wick at all-time highs here at 189. So I'll keep an eye on this one in particular. If market's pretty much choppy, this may be one that it may let it go and just be a nice little running here, a nice little scalp for me in particular. So I'll keep a watch on that one. But other than that, watch list is a little tight. I want to see what tomorrow's price action is going to be. We do have Walmart earnings tomorrow morning. I'm expecting the margins to be better on Walmart tomorrow. I mean, the chart setup is nothing beautiful here. I don't really particularly see that the chart setup is beautiful. I think it's just going to be unexpected numbers, in which that's just going to be the catalyst that pretty much just rockets Walmart, if that be the case. I mean, we saw at some point where Target pretty much just took off, and they were pretty much been in the same range that we've seen Walmart. And Target's just been going nonstop. So I'm waiting on that trigger that's going to send Walmart crazy. I know that their margins need to improve right now. So we'll see what pretty much what their earnings are. It could potentially be a momentum play, a continuation play at open. But that's one that I'll be watching in the morning also for earnings. But other than that, I think my watch list is pretty limited as far as to those names that I'm really watching. I know that I did see a little bit of dark pool, a little bit of buying on Apple also. Nothing that I'm pretty much sneezing about that I really it stood out to me. I still want to see us end up breaking this 150 160 level. We did get that little spike, but at morning. But if we end up filling that wick, then it'll probably get my attention. All right. So let's see what it is. A Walmart Rapid? Hell no, that's definitely not gonna happen. That thing moves like a snail. But I can expect Lucid. I would expect Lucid. If Amazon really goes crazy tomorrow, I would see Amazon Rapid. I mean, the Rapids actually went off nuts this morning. I think we got like four, like back to back. I mean, and they all literally fired. They all literally fired for about 10% gain. So that was a beautiful one. The unique flow was a little bit quiet today, and also major flow. Nothing insanely crazy. One thing that did catch my attention, I think it was a little bit towards the afternoon, was the XLF calls that came through, the unusual calls on major flow. So that's why I'm not necessarily high on financials, but I kept American Express on because that setup looked particularly better rather than, say, particularly the banks itself. Goldman Sachs, I mean, I'll watch it if financials are up in the morning. And then I didn't particularly like the JPM chart. But I did like that one coming in, so that may be a sign tomorrow to just keep financials on watch also to see what sector really is going to start pushing. Because you could end up seeing retail and financials push and tech pretty much lag yet again. So that's something to really just keep a watch on. All right. Let's see. Someone said mention PayPal. Let me pick PayPal real quick. And the funny thing is that this was pretty much my demand zone that I had on PayPal. I never really changed it. I wanted to see it below that 195 mark, and I actually had an alert set on it below that 195. But the good sign is that we actually entered into the gap fill here. So you enter that into that gap fill right over that mark of 212 it is. Yeah, over 212 you got into that gap fill now. So you do have some range on this one. Now you're gonna have a little bit of resistance. It looks like right around this 215.86ish area. That's where you're gonna have resistance on PayPal here. But over that level, I don't really see much resistance until filling that gap. Maybe another resistance level right around here. I want to say right around this level, around the 220 mark. You're gonna get some resistance. The only thing is that I don't expect this to be a fast mover in which you're gonna fill that gap within a week matter. It's gonna be a slow grinder. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't expect us to continue to go straight upward as you see this price action right now. So just keep that in mind and try and take profits along the way if you are holding calls on it, because you don't want to get caught in the choppiness that is potentially going to do, because I can see this going a little bit more sideways and then getting that spike right up to the top to fill the gap fill. So that's something, I mean, I don't expect us to just get a V-shaped recovery and just fill that gap. That's something that I will tell you right now just to be cautious of. So you don't end up holding and then you pretty much just see that chop in which you get that straight line back down. All right. But I can see us end up getting up to 220. 220-ish will be my near-term target on that until we end up pretty much chopping and then getting that pretty much rounding bottom per se. It'll probably be a wedge of some sort that it does here. To be honest with you, it'll be a little bit of a wedge as high as 220 down to the low here, and then we'll get a nice little push to the upside. All right. That one's a little bit difficult, only because of the sense that you're in no man's land right now, being in that gap fill. All right, and I don't expect a V-shaped recovery. Roblox, I know that Roblox ended up giving back profits today, didn't it? We were expecting that push out of that continuation from Friday, and we didn't get it. Let me see. Probably a larger time frame will give me a better picture here. So you do have that cup and handle. That's pretty much what gave you your handle. You ended up getting a beautiful little double bottom action here, and that's where your buy zone was, around that 93 mark. That would have been your buy mark. You ended up getting the push here, so you got a little bit of an inside. Is that an inside candle here? Let me see the day. No, it's not an inside candle. But you basically want to end up breaking over this high here. So once you break over the high on this candle here of 109.97, that's going to open up your range to 110. You're probably going to see some buyers step in the money on 110 calls. And then in particular, you're going to see resistance at 113, and you're going to push towards 115 on Roblox. The only thing that's going to prevent this is, of course, market conditions. That's going to be the one thing that's going to prevent this from possibly happening, because you can continue to go sideways until the market's really ready to take that next leg higher, and which Roblox is also, it's going to allow Roblox to push. All right. But I want to see us get over 110. You'll likely see some calls at the money or in the money start to flood the gates. I know that they've actually been going out to calls, I think, as far as like 120 strike, which has been insane, and a lot of them have actually just been eating theta, pretty much, for that matter. So there's a lot of buyers out of the money that are just floating out there, getting eaten by premium. But I would expect this to potentially get up to 113, and then 115 would be my overall target for this week. I don't expect over 115 this week. Likely into next week that we get that. So it'll be a little bit more of a chop on this one. As I say, I don't expect market to really do much this week as well. So that may not be in the favor of Roblox as well. All right. I'll check Twilio, and then I'm gonna look at BGFV just to see a support level that I particularly want to know. Let me see Twilio real quick, and then I'll look at BGFV, and that'll call it a wrap for tonight, guys. Let's see what we're looking at here. So you do have that gap fill. One thing that I actually noticed right off the bat was that you have a pretty defined support level right now. So you have a very defined support level right now on this one here. If I put that there, which I thought I changed the color and I didn't, put it in green so you actually identify it. So that's one thing that I noticed right off the bat, is that defined support level. Now looking into resistance level, what it looks like is a descending broadening wedge. That's particularly what I'm looking at right now. That's exactly what I'm looking at. It's a descending broadening wedge. So, and I'm hoping that this is not more so of a rising wedge type of action that you have here, but you definitely want to see this get back over this level, over that 310 mark. Ideally, will propel this into that gap fill. But if you reject 310, then you're gonna continue to break down even further. And then once you lose this little bottom here of 293, it's gonna get particularly ugly. So those are the two key levels I'm watching. 293 and over 310 would be the range that you really want to watch Twilio. Other than that, this is a little bit range bound right now in this zone. All right. So under 293 or over 310, those are the two key levels I'm watching for Twilio. Over that 310, then you're gonna get right into continuation of the gap fill to the upside. All right. Other than that, let me see that last ticker that I was gonna mention, BGFV, real quick. And I'm actually just gonna clear the chart because I just want to see this one fresh. All right, let's see. Damn, that's a straight line down. My God, Tom, how did you look at this today? That literally looks like a straight line down. Yikes, that's horrible. That's literally horrendous. My God. Well, at least you have a defined resistance level. Look at this. Once you get over that 50 mark, look, you're going to like the moon right now. All right, let me stop joking because it just looks ugly. Let me see. Bro, where's your support right now on this? It looks horrendous. Right into the body of that candle, resting on all three of those bodies of those candles. Yeah, you're right at resistance, in which this is pretty much just parallel right now, if you notice that. So if I extend that out, it looks pretty parallel to me right now. So that's pretty much your range that you're looking at right now. It looks a bit parallel going up. So if this support holds right now, which I would hope so, if you end up breaking below 31.31, then that's gonna end up getting a lot more ugly because then you're in the gap fill right now. So you definitely don't want to end up getting below that 31.31 mark. But if you're able to hold that bottom that we had today of 32.64, ideally what I would want to see you get back over is 37.11. You get back over 37.11 on this, then that could potentially open up range for a nice little V-shaped recovery. He would yell at me. Why? Because this chart looks really ugly and I'm trying to make a bull case on it. I mean, do you know how many people are actually holding this right now? Probably still. Look, in reality, that's why I say that with squeezes, you have to take profits up. I mean, and imagine just being all at the top here and not taking your profits as you should have along the way up. And that's really the issue. So that's what I would say right now. I mean, hopefully you can end up breaking over back that 37.11 mark. That would be the ideal mark that I would want to see us get back over. We get back over there, then 40s in range, and hopefully those of you that are still holding can get somewhat of an entry. Do I expect this to break the high yet again of, what was this, 47.65? Honestly, no, I don't. I do think that the run is over. I mean, that's a $12 drop. You're not particularly going to make up $12 in this case. I mean, it may end up taking some time because obviously you had this kind of drop. So that's why you are holding at a key support level on the channel, the ascending channel. But if you're holding weeklies, forget about it. I would just say that as much. I mean, you're not going to get back to where it was if you bought all the way at the top. So that's what I'll say right now. But 37.11 is pretty much the over that I want to see. Under 31.31, then you're looking at that gap fill down below. All right, right into this range. So that's what I don't like particularly about this one is that gap fill. That's kind of a little bit worrying. But that's the two ranges that I'm watching for with BGFV. All right. Other than that, that kind of wraps up tonight, guys. I think my top watches are literally going to be Shopify and Amazon, like I said, for those of you that are just joining in. I'm just hoping that we don't particularly get a sideways action like we did today. We did pretty much just range bound today. And I expect that kind of through the week. I know that if you actually checked out Avery's DEFCON levels, he's actually expecting a little bit more blood going in later into the week here. So the downside is a little bit more favored right now as we speak across the board. So that's something to just keep in mind as well. Don't go in heavy into positions. Just keep it light is what I would say. All right. Until you see really stocks like Amazon or Shopify that have a little bit more technical, a little bit more momentum behind it, don't push. Especially names like Tesla that are just range bound. There's no reason to flood money into Tesla right now. With much just selling shares, you're literally just going against the trend of Tesla right now. All right. So don't do that. Other than that, I'll see you guys on live tomorrow morning. And Tatum, I'll probably see you on live also. But you guys have a good night, and I'll see you guys in the morning on live. Then, all right. Have a good